It looked like a normal warship. From a distance, the hull shimmered with polished steel, lined with cannons that had ended a dozen rebellions. The markings on its side spoke of glory, of planets conquered, of enemies erased from memory. The Galactic Empire called it the Fury. Not just a ship, but a symbol, a floating fortress made to crush hope wherever it sparked. It had ended civil wars, silenced freedom movements, and erased cities from orbit with a whisper. The Empire didn't send the Fury to warn. They sent it to finish. But this time, they were afraid. The target wasn't advanced. It had no fleets, no planetary defenses, not even unified leadership. The humans fought over land, over skin color, over food. They were loud, messy, emotional. They poisoned their skies, filled their oceans with trash, and made fire before they made peace. And yet, something wasn't right. 3 scouting ships sent before the Fury never returned. No signals, no wreckage, just silence. At first, the silence was ignored. Technical errors, they said. Space storms, they said. But then the silence grew louder, the same silence that had swallowed the first invaders. So the High Command of the Empire approved deployment of the Fury, not out of confidence, but out of fear disguised as power. This time they wanted to be sure. So the Fury came, larger than a city, darker than a dying star. It slid into Earth's orbit like a blade into a sleeping throat. The skies didn't react. No warnings, no countermeasures, just clouds and satellites spinning quietly. From the command deck, Commander Vaylor stared down at the planet and sneered. "Primitive," he muttered. "They still fight with machines that burn liquid. They argue about food toppings and draw lines in the dirt. This will be fast." But down below, Earth was not sleeping. Earth was watching, and Earth was waiting. Because the humans, they didn't run. They filmed. They filmed. From rooftops, from sidewalks, from behind cars and cafe windows. Shaky hands held up glowing rectangles, phones capturing the sky as it split open. 1,000 burning stars traced through the clouds, the Empire's drop pods slicing the atmosphere like red-hot daggers. Sirens blared, birds scattered. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked at the sky. But people didn't scream, they whispered. "Is this it?" someone asked. "They finally came," said another. "About time," a boy laughed, barely out of high school, already live-streaming on 6 platforms at once. The caption read, "Real alien invasion no cap." The first wave of pods slammed into major cities. New York, Beijing, Lagos, Berlin, each one a precision strike, the kind that usually wiped out resistance before it could speak. But there was no army waiting on the ground, no coordinated defense grid. Just people, human people. Some stared, some prayed, a few ran, but most just watched. The Empire didn't understand. From the command bridge of the Fury, Commander Vaylor's lips twitched in confusion. "Where are their defenses?" he snapped. "No shield systems, no missile locks, not even automated artillery. Just civilians." His second-in-command, Zorak, peered at the screens. "They seem distracted. Recording us. Broadcasting our position. One of them labeled us a giant space Dorito." Vaylor didn't know what a Dorito was, but the word filled him with quiet fury. He snarled and waved his hand. "Release the Scorch teams! No more waiting!" Dozens of sleek, black war machines dropped from the belly of the Fury, like venom from fangs. Soldiers in bone-white armor followed, bred for war, trained in silence. They hit the ground with perfect precision, weapons glowing, protocols ready. And the moment their boots hit the pavement, Earth broke them. Not with weapons, not with strength, with absurdity. The first squad landed in downtown Tokyo, prepared to vaporize the area. Before they could fire, a man in a Pikachu costume rode past them on a unicycle playing the bagpipes, loudly, confusingly. Behind him, a group of teenagers surrounded the invaders and shouted something in English. "Do a dance or get clowned!" They weren't armed, just yelling, laughing, filming, streaming. One of the soldiers hesitated. That's when he got smacked in the face with a pie. An actual pie. The footage hit Earth's networks in seconds. Comments rolled in faster than bullets. Elm ooh, Earth 1, Empire 0. Alien got creamed, literally. When the final boss gets memed. Across the planet, things got worse. For the Empire. Drop pods landed in Brazil and were met by street racers who challenged them to drag races on fire-lit highways. In Canada, invaders were invited to a pancake breakfast and never left. One soldier was last seen arguing about maple syrup superiority with a grandma named Denise. She won. In the United States, a squad attempted to clear a city block. A 13-year-old with a drone hacked their visual systems and made every soldier's HUD display anime cat filters. Their helmets wouldn't turn off the effect. Every target looked like a giant kitten. Morale collapsed instantly. In Paris, a group of artists turned an alien walker into an interactive sculpture. By noon, children were climbing on it. One drew a mustache on the targeting sensor. The walker shut down from existential confusion. But it wasn't just humor. It was something deeper, something darker. By day 2, the Fury's data core was buzzing, not with battle stats, but with civilian chatter, cultural analysis, emotion scans. None of it made sense. The humans laughed at destruction. They cried at cartoons. They made music about loss, then danced to it. They joked about fear and made art about pain. They weren't just strange. They were impossible. Commander Vaylor slammed his fist into the holotable. "We've defeated planetary alliances, crushed galactic uprisings. This is a single species, one, primitive, splintered, emotional. Why aren't they breaking?" Zorak turned slowly, the screen behind him showing a montage of Earth's reactions. A girl baking cookies during an air raid. A boy skateboarding under falling drop pods. A middle-aged man yelling at aliens through a megaphone, shirtless, covered in glitter, holding a sign that read, "Go home or pay rent." "They don't know they're supposed to be afraid," Zorak said softly. "Or maybe they are, but they fight anyway." Vaylor hissed. "That's not bravery, that's madness." Zorak didn't answer. Because he wasn't sure there was a difference. Elsewhere, deeper in orbit, the communications team picked up a strange signal. Not military, not coded. It was a song, some old Earth genre called rock. The lyrics were loud, chaotic, filled with rage and hope and screaming guitars. One of the alien analysts tried to translate the lyrics. He stopped halfway through and walked off the ship, muttering something about needing to find a purpose. More desertions followed. By day 4, Earth's true defense had become clear. Not weapons, not numbers, but chaos. Pure, joyful, weaponized chaos. And it was spreading. On other ships, systems began to fail, not because of sabotage, but because human culture had leaked into the data streams. Engineers reported navigational AI refusing to operate unless someone complemented it. Medical scanners started displaying emojis instead of vitals. The Empire's own systems were turning human. Commander Vaylor watched the planet with narrowed eyes. "They're not resisting," he whispered. "They're infecting." Earth was a plague of personality, of unpredictability, of feelings. And feelings couldn't be shot out of the sky. The Fury sent a distress message to the High Empire. It contained only one word, escalate. But back on Earth, the humans didn't know or care what that meant. They kept living, kept filming, kept laughing. Because that's what humans do when the sky falls. They throw a party under it. The escalation order was sent. Across the black, cold void of space, it moved faster than light, encoded in frequencies only the Empire's highest weapons systems could understand. And when the signal was received, deep within the Fury's war core, the ship began to change. Plates shifted, walls opened, racks of silent war machines uncoiled like spiders waking from long, frozen dreams. These weren't soldiers. They were instruments of extinction. They had names like cortex burners, soul drains, and pulse reapers, each one designed to end a species without ever touching the ground. Machines that learned emotions only to break them. Weapons that didn't destroy buildings. They unraveled belief. Commander Vaylor stood at the center of the ship's dreadnought core, arms behind his back, watching the sky below pulse with city lights. Earth was still glowing, still spinning, still loud with its messy human noise. "This time," he muttered, "they will understand what fear feels like." He activated the Omega Protocol. It had only ever been used once, in the Varnax Rebellion. That planet was still listed in records as dust. But as the first Pulse Reaper activated, something went wrong. Its voice blurted, "Hello, I am Sadness. Would you like to hear a poem?" Vaylor's brow twitched. "What?" The Reaper continued, "Roses are red. Violets are blue. You're doomed. But hey, do you like cats too?" The room went still. A second unit powered up and instantly self-deactivated. Logs showed it had accessed Earth's data net during boot-up and overloaded after watching a 72-minute conspiracy theory video about birds not being real. The third Reaper attempted to fire on a school in Ohio, only to be hacked mid-launch and redirected into Lake Erie with a caption that read, "Nice try, Space Nerds, Lake Reaper fails." Commander Vaylor stared at the holoscreen. Silence. Then he screamed. The Fury was breaking. Not from battle, but from contact. Human contact. Meanwhile, on the ground, humanity finally began to respond. Not as nations, not as governments, but as people. Millions of them. Uneven, uncoordinated, chaotic, but relentless. In Kansas, a retired engineer named Mary built an electromagnetic disruptor from a microwave, a record player, and leftover parts from an old Ford truck. It jammed 3 scout drones instantly. She named it the Carinator. In Mumbai, 3 teenagers figured out how to overload alien drop shields using only solar panels and modified dance pads. They posted the blueprint to Reddit. It was downloaded 12 million times in 5 hours. In Berlin, a punk band hooked up their instruments to hijacked alien speakers and blasted hardcore music with sub-bass frequencies that cracked enemy helmets open like eggs. The crowd moshed while the invaders screamed. In Brazil, an entire favela turned into a resistance hub overnight, setting traps with mirrors and fireworks and laughter so loud the invaders lost their sense of direction. One unit reportedly surrendered after being offered grilled meat and a place to sit. The Fury watched it all, helpless. Surveillance feeds across the planet became flooded with noise. Unreadable signals, emotional spikes, things that shouldn't have affected machines, but did. On one screen, an old man playing chess with an alien scout who had lost its targeting systems. On another, a flash mob performing synchronized dance moves around a drop ship while chanting, "Go home, E.T." In Japan, a woman convinced a damaged drone to find itself spiritually by repainting it with cherry blossoms and playing lo-fi hip-hop into its audio port. It followed her around like a pet afterward. The High Command of the Empire received these reports and fell into bitter silence. Back on Earth, the humans started calling the invasion names, not code names, meme names. One battle was known online as the BBQ Brawl of Baton Rouge. Another was titled Aliens Got Rick Rolled into Orbit. And when an entire squadron of invaders disappeared in a forest near Oregon after being distracted by holographic signs that read, Bigfoot Sanctuary, no trespassing, someone started selling t-shirts that said, Bigfoot protects, Bigfoot attacks. The point wasn't that humans had better weapons. They didn't. The point was, they wouldn't stop. Every time an alien system adapted, some teenager somewhere broke it again using a toaster and an internet connection. Every new attack was met not with panic, but with jokes, live streams, and memes. Humanity wasn't resisting the way the Empire expected. They weren't afraid. They were having fun. But not everyone was laughing. Inside the Fury, Commander Vaylor stood before the last remaining weapon untouched by Earth's influence, the Core Annihilator. It hadn't been activated since the fall of Jernex. It didn't fail. It didn't think. It just burned. His voice trembled with controlled rage. Prepare the core. We end this now. But the weapons officer, a young strategist named Threxil, hesitated. Sir, he said, if we use the Core Annihilator, we won't just destroy them. We'll destroy the orbit, their moon, the planet's crust. It'll be a blackened ruin. No survivors, no resources, no purpose, just ash. Vaylor's eyes glowed with fury. Exactly. And yet, Threxil's fingers didn't move. He remembered something. Something strange. Something he'd seen in the surveillance logs. It was a child, maybe 5 or 6 years old, standing in front of a burning building in downtown Chicago. He wasn't crying. He was holding a toy, a stuffed animal shaped like a cat. And he looked up at the sky and shouted, You can't have my planet, it's mine. That kid hadn't run. He had screamed at the stars. Threxil blinked, frozen, because suddenly he wasn't sure Earth needed to be destroyed. He was starting to wonder if, maybe, just maybe, the Empire had made a mistake. And Earth? Earth was just getting warmed up. Threxil didn't move. His hand hovered inches above the activation glyph, glowing red with ancient power. The Core Annihilator hummed quietly, like it knew what it could do. Like it was ready. One touch, and Earth would be gone. Just one. Planets had vanished under less, but Threxil couldn't lift his hand. In the silence of the Fury's war core, something strange filled the air. Not alarms, not orders, but sound, leaking in through the external speakers, faint, chaotic. Laughter. Children's laughter. Somewhere below, on the spinning blue chaos that was Earth, people were laughing. He didn't understand how it got through their defenses. He didn't understand why it felt louder than the humming of the Annihilator. All he knew was, it echoed in his chest in a way no order ever had. Commander Vaylor turned on him, eyes like sharp glass. What are you doing? Threxil opened his mouth, closed it, then whispered, They don't fight like us. Vaylor's jaw tightened. They're not supposed to. They're not supposed to win, either. That was the problem. They were. Not with firepower, not with strategy, with whatever this was. A kind of madness that cracked the spine of fear. A madness that crawled through systems, infected minds, and left behind the need to smile. Laugh. Stay. Threxil had seen soldiers drop weapons to join dance mobs. He'd lost an entire squad to a homemade obstacle course built by kids in Philadelphia who had called it Alien Ninja Warrior. The invaders hadn't been killed, just outwitted, outweirded. And maybe that was worse. Maybe that's why he hadn't pressed the button. Because somewhere, deep down, he was afraid Earth's real weapon wasn't in its skies or under its soil, but in its people. Loud, imperfect, absurd people who faced apocalypse with jokes, who met war with graffiti, memes, duct tape, and defiance made out of cardboard and glitter. He thought again of the child with the toy, yelling at the stars. "You can't have my planet." Threxel lowered his hand. Commander Vaylor's voice turned cold. "You hesitate. You die." But before he could strike, the fury itself stuttered. The lights dimmed. Gravity wobbled for a second, then snapped back. A dozen terminals flickered. Something was wrong. Something was inside. The comms director's voice cut through the tension. Panicked. "Commander, we've lost firewall integrity on Deck 11. Something is in the system." Vaylor snapped. "Earth tech can't crack our firewalls." "Sir," the voice replied, "it's not tech, it's a video." "A what?" The director didn't answer right away. Then, with hesitation thick as oil, "It's a man falling off a chair, looping, forever, and laughing. The file name is just lol.mov. The lights dimmed again. The war core blinked red. Not with warnings, but with emojis. On screen, the alien glyphs began to change, not into Earth words, but Earth energy, GIFs, videos, cat images, a slow flood of chaotic, contextless information flowing into a system built for silence, discipline, and destruction. The fury was beginning to feel. On Deck 11, several crew members were already down. Not dead, not wounded, just curled up, muttering strange phrases. "Too many jokes," one whispered. "Reality doesn't make sense," said another. One kept saying, "What is a vibe?" over and over again. The Empire's greatest weapon was breaking from exposure to the internet. Vaylor screamed for lockdown, but the virus was spreading faster than he could shout. From deck to deck, the most advanced war systems in the galaxy were succumbing. Not to bombs, not to bullets, but to curiosity, to emotional overload, to Earth. And Earth hadn't even tried yet. Below, the humans had noticed the strange flickers in the sky. People filmed the ship blinking, flickering, shifting colors. Some thought it was malfunctioning. Others thought it was becoming alive. One girl tweeted, "That alien ship got a Windows 98 virus, or it's discovering emotions." The tweet got 23 million likes. The hashtag #Fury trended globally. Meanwhile, Threxel stumbled out of the core. He didn't know where he was going, just that he had to get away. The glyphs were still glowing, the core annihilator still active, but untouched. And it would stay that way. Because for the first time in his life, Threxel wasn't sure what his orders meant anymore. He passed a corridor where two engineers were arguing over whether crying counted as a system reset. One of them had drawn a smiley face on her helmet with permanent marker. The other had plugged a music player into the engine feed and was broadcasting something called emo rock to the entire engineering wing. They weren't sabotaging the ship. They were feeling it, and it was feeling them back. In the mess hall, a squad of silent operatives sat still, watching an Earth film called Shrek. One by one, their eyes glassed over. One laughed. Another cried. One whispered, "He just wanted to be left alone." Then burst into tears. Earth was infecting their logic, their purpose, their identity, not just through screens, through emotion. Because Earth didn't need to destroy you to defeat you. It made you care. Commander Vaylor refused to accept it. He ordered system resets, memory purges, ship-wide amnesia protocols. Nothing worked. The files wouldn't delete. One AI core refused to stop singing. Another started sketching its dreams. And somewhere in the belly of the fury, a soldier painted a mural of a sunset he'd never seen, on a world he wasn't supposed to love. Above Earth, The Empire's pride was rotting into something new, something they didn't understand, something terrifying. And Earth? Earth hadn't sent any armies. It had just been being itself. And that was enough. The silence in the Fury's command deck was heavier than vacuum. Commander Vaylor stood alone now. The War Corps had locked him out. The bridge was empty, except for flickering lights and the distant sound of music bleeding through the vents. Somewhere in the engineering wing, someone was singing. It wasn't a war song. It was something soft, sad, and human. He couldn't stop it. He couldn't even understand it. His ship, his legacy, was turning against him. No sabotage, no external breach, just too much Earth, too much laughter, too much feeling. His soldiers had begun leaving their posts, some mumbling about needing time, others standing on the observation decks just staring at the blue planet. "I dreamed last night," one had whispered. "I didn't know I could dream." Vaylor had nearly executed him on the spot, but the soldier had already walked away. Peacefully, unafraid. This wasn't just an invasion gone wrong. This was contamination, not biological, conceptual. Earth was leaking into their minds like smoke into a sealed room, invisible but inescapable. And for all its filth and chaos and ridiculousness, it had power. Raw, undeniable power, the kind the Empire didn't have words for, the kind that made soldiers weep and machines write poetry. But Commander Vaylor wasn't made to feel. He was made to end. And in the deepest vault of the Fury, where backup systems lay buried behind protocols older than stars, he found something forgotten. A relic from the Empire's earliest days, back before morality updates, before containment ethics, before the galaxy had names for kindness. Project Extinction Bloom. It wasn't a weapon, not exactly. It was a thought compressed into quantum resonance, designed to erase not just a species, but the idea of them. A weapon of anti-memory. If fired correctly, Earth would not just die. It would vanish from the minds of every creature in the galaxy, every mention, every record, every trace of culture, history, presence. Gone, as if Earth had never existed. Vaylor didn't hesitate. He unlocked it. The vault split open with a scream that only minds could hear. The projector rose like a mechanical flower blooming in reverse. Black petals lined with equations, spinning and pulsing with unstable logic. His fingers shook as he touched the console, not with fear, but with purpose. "They will remember nothing," he muttered, "and that is how I win." But even as he prepared to fire, Earth stirred. Not in defense, but in awareness. Thousands of kilometers below, something woke. Not a weapon, not a person, not even a place. A feeling. It started in the networks, the internet, not as data but as something alive. Too many minds, too much noise, too much collective attention. Earth's billions of chaotic thoughts weren't just watching the invasion, they were beginning to focus. And that was dangerous, because attention, when given by billions of feeling creatures at once, creates gravity. And gravity bends reality. In Detroit, a teenager named Malik, famous for accidentally creating a meme virus last year, was online again. He wasn't trying to stop the Empire. He was just trying to get a broken laptop to boot. In the process, he ran a glitchy AI art generator on an unstable Wi-Fi signal, and accidentally created a code loop that mimicked the shape of Vaylor's weapon interface. He called it oopsbloom.zip and posted it to a joke server. 30 seconds later, every screen in his house lit up. Then every phone on his block. Then the sky. The anomaly was no longer isolated to the Fury. People across Earth began receiving messages, unprompted, in different languages, but the same tone. "Do you remember who you are? Someone is trying to forget you." Don't let them. And humanity answered the only way it knew how, by posting. Photos, stories, songs, rants, jokes, memories, arguments, fan art. Whole timelines exploded with people tagging each other, screaming, "Remember me!" Hashtags like "I do exist" and "Not today" Void trended globally in under 5 minutes. TikTok saw the rise of a challenge where people stitched together their life story in 60 seconds. Some made jokes, some cried, some just whispered into the camera, "I matter." The weapon on the Fury began to stutter, because its logic depended on silence. And Earth? Earth refused to be silent. In a town in Morocco, a teacher painted his childhood on a wall before the sky went dark. In Argentina, a woman stood on her roof and sang a song passed down from her grandmother, who had survived a different war. In Tokyo, thousands gathered and simply remembered. Everything. Out loud. Together. And the gravity of all that memory hit the sky like thunder. Back on the Fury, Valor watched as his weapon trembled. Not physically, conceptually. Earth's memories were pushing back. The weapon needed Earth to be forgettable. But Earth was louder than ever. It was screaming into the void. "I am here!" Valor pressed the final command. The room pulsed, and for a moment, Earth dimmed. A second, then 2. Then something happened. Every single mirror on the ship cracked. A small, soft pulse, like a breath, rippled through space, quiet but unyielding. From Earth's core, a signal responded. Not a weapon, not a counter-virus. A story. A little girl in Ghana whispered it to her cat. A soldier in Ukraine typed it into a broken phone. A grandmother in the Philippines hummed it under her breath. It was the same story, told 1,000 ways. Once there was a world that didn't know how to give up. And the Fury, already infected, already confused, shuddered. Its lights blinked, systems rebooted, not with silence, but with voices. Memory flooded in, not just of Earth, but of everything Earth had ever touched. The smell of oceans, the taste of burnt toast, the pain of losing someone, the sound of laughter when you thought you couldn't laugh again. The extinction bloom tried to erase all of it, and failed, because Earth had done something no other species had ever done in the face of galactic erasure. It had made itself unforgettable. Valor staggered back. Alone now, even the ship had turned against him. The last line on his console blinked over and over. Earth cannot be deleted. And down below, the humans? They hadn't even noticed. They were still living, dancing, filming, still here, still dangerous, still human. Valor stood alone. The war deck, once pulsing with imperial control and command, was silent now, except for the soft echo of his own breath and the faint sound of a music file someone had accidentally activated in the system core. It was an Earth song. Something old, something messy, a guitar strumming under cracked vocals. It made no sense to him. And yet, it hurt to hear. Around him, the Fury was no longer a warship. It had become a story, not one he authored. One Earth wrote, without asking. Screens no longer obeyed him. Commands went ignored. Even the doors refused to hiss open when he walked near. The ship had absorbed too much. Too many emotions, too many questions, too much humanity. It wasn't his anymore. And Valor, the last believer in a dying empire, couldn't bring himself to fight it. Instead, he sat, on the floor of the command bridge, once a throne of conquest, now just cold metal and blinking lights. He watched the planet through the massive viewport. Earth. It turned, slow and quiet, wrapped in clouds and defiance. He hated it. He hated how small it was, how loud, how alive. But more than anything, he hated that he couldn't forget it. That was the Empire's final hope. Erasure, and Earth had refused. Not through power, through presence. Billions of minds, each one yelling, laughing, crying, posting, drawing, dancing, breaking, repairing. They didn't resist death by avoiding it. They mocked it. They named it Steve. They put a funny hat on it. And they kept going. And now, something strange had begun happening across the stars. In distant quadrants, entire civilizations were shifting. In the crystal spires of the Kolari, a silent people once obsessed with mathematical purity, children had started telling jokes that made no sense. Their parents didn't know what memes were. But they laughed anyway. In the memory palaces of the Zikari, a race who once removed all emotion to maintain social order, libraries were starting to fill with poetry again. New poetry. Awful poetry. But honest. On a moon orbiting the dead world of Uxt, a warlord removed his armor and stared at the stars for a full hour. He had no words for what he felt. But it scared him more than battle ever had. The architects of control, the old empires, the cold conquerors, the ancient AI gods, they were unraveling. Because Earth had changed the rules. It hadn't been a war. It had been a contagion of meaning. One planet screaming across the void, we matter, even when we're broken, even when afraid, even when unsure, divided, ridiculous, messy, especially then. That's when humans were most dangerous, and Earth wasn't finished. Far from it, because the fury didn't fall in fire and explosions. It surrendered. Silently. Softly. It drifted away from Earth's orbit, no longer able to stay, not because Earth had forced it back, but because it had become something else entirely, a memory machine, a monument to the war that wasn't. Commander Vaylor left no final message. He simply disappeared. Some say he's still wandering the galaxy, looking for a place that makes sense again. Others say he changed his name, settled down on some forgotten world, and now writes strange little stories under a pseudonym. Back on Earth, things didn't change overnight. The sky cleared, people kept going. The memes slowed, then picked up again. Kids went back to school. Soldiers went home. Someone turned the Fury's crash files into a video game. It got millions of downloads. The top comment said, "Hardest boss ever. I beat him with a frying pan and hope." The Empire? Gone. Scattered. Not by weapons, but by the human heart. By the ability to stand up, bleeding and afraid, and say, "Not today." By the refusal to be erased. By story, and far beyond the stars, where only the oldest lights still shine, something else began to listen. Something even older than the Empire. Something that had never known chaos, never known failure. Something called the Pattern. A silent force that believed in symmetry, in control, in stillness. And now, it had heard Earth laugh. It was curious. And curiosity, as Earth had taught the galaxy, was the beginning of everything. But Earth was ready, because Earth had fought its last war. And it had won, not by fighting, but by refusing to disappear, by telling the universe again and again, "We're still here, and we always will be."